Hello, explorers of the darkness, and welcome to Video Games, the Movie, the Podcast. I'm your host, Dan.
And I'm Maxie.
And this month, we are talking about Alone in the Dark 2005, our first Boll film, and picked very serendipitously. I guess, let's see, how are things for you this month?
Well, in a week I'm going to be seeing my girlfriend who's visiting from across the country, so that's kind of all that I'm thinking about until that happens.
Let's see. Today I got both a COVID booster shot and a, flu shot, one in each arm. It's like dual wielding. Let's see. I stayed home for Thanksgiving, though I did visit my mom the day before. Yeah, that, otherwise not too eventful. Also, have you been playing any games lately?
Played Inscription.
Oh, yeah.
People were talking a lot about that.
Yeah, I watched someone play that, the other night. It's got some interesting ideas.
Yeah, I wish it, explored them all the way.
Yeah. The art stuff I just feel is a little unnecessary, like, I know Pony Island had that, but, that was all in-game. And, I think it had to take, multiple playthroughs to get everything. But even then, that was just, hey, your guy used to be a crusader in the Crusades.
Yeah. I think the big thing is, I don't have anything against a short game, but I do think you need to give yourself the amount of time you need to explore everything you got going on, and I think it just ends too soon. It needed more time to, get into shit, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. What else do I...
That said, the first act, incredibly cool.
Right. Let's see, what have I been playing? I got re-inducted into the Final Fantasy XIV cult.
Oh boy.
I finished A Realm Reborn. When I originally played it, I wasted my free trial just doing crafting stuff. It's, as it turns out, Final Fantasy XIV is a good video game. What else? Oh, I played Unpacking. That's really good. That's a really good game.
Yeah, I've been hearing a little bit about it.
Yeah. It's very short. It's 4 hours. You can beat it in one session. When I decided to take a break and resume playing, I found out that where I had dropped off was in fact the end of the game. It's nice. I think it's a really fun idea to do environmental storytelling by unpacking your moving boxes. What else have I been playing? That's all I want to mention right now. But yeah, games are good. So let's talk about, some background stuff for this movie. I believe this is Uwe Boll's second video game film, his first being House of the Dead. Uwe Boll seems to be a very crass guy. He makes films he is very famous for making games based on video games that are not very good.
Yeah. There are sort of two things that I'd say a lot of people know about Boll.
Mm-hmm.
The first is that there is a rumor that he makes the movies bad on purpose due to a loophole in the German tax code. I do not know if this is true. I think he might just be shit.
He might just be shit.
But it does raise the question of where he's getting investment money. Maybe he's earnest and the investors aren't. Maybe the whole thing is just rumors and he either has, a solid source of independent funding or is really good at schmoozing, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak to that, but that is the rumor that has been going around for many years now.
Right.
And the other thing is, I think in the either late 2000s, early 2010s, he started challenging his critics to boxing matches?
Yes. From what I can tell, this was in 2006. Some people took him up. Not everyone did. He turned one person down because they actually were a professional boxer and he couldn't just beat them up. Well, amateur boxer. But
trained,
Yeah. These were public events. They were aired on goldenpalace.com. And the first and most famous fight of them was between himself and Richard Lowtax Kayanka. May he rest in piss. Lowtax got his ass kicked. Other people were challenged. It seems he tried to only go after, people who he thought he could win in a fight. Yeah, that's the core of it. He still makes movies, though not as often. And there hasn't been one based on a video game since 2014. At least as well as I can tell. These other films, however, do seem to be action films and horror films, so still doing that stuff. Two other things I want to note. This movie is actually based on a 2001 game of this series, Alone in the Dark. And also York Tittle is an associate producer on this film. If you don't know who that is, he famously played the role of Jorg in Illbleed.
Wait, for real?
Yeah, that's him. I looked at the credits and I was like, what the fuck? Why is he holy shit. It all ties together.
A game about B-movies, a B-movie about games. Mm-hmm. I guess it's like poetry, it rhymes.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, that's everything I want to note. Let's get into this movie. So we open with, hang on, I gotta find it. Yes, here we go. There is a very fast and very quickly narrated text scroll about a lost native civilization called the Abkhani.
Apparently, this was narrated by Boll, which is...
Huh.
I mean, it makes sense, because it's not done by a professional voice actor.
Mm-mm.
I took a note. This narrator sounds like Rod Serling after eating a bunch of mini marshmallows. Is what I have in my notes here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is also a really weird intro because it just tells us a bunch of shit that the actual movie is going to tell us again in a more natural way.
Right.
So putting it here just kind of kills any intrigue that could exist.
Yeah, the bulk... I guess, in that case, maybe we should, explain things naturally over the course of the podcast, then. Let's see. So, we see a kid. He's in his pajamas, and he's running in the forest, trying to get away from authorities.
Mm-hmm.
We then see this man, who we later learn is named Lionel Hudgens. He is trying to strike a deal with a nun to get her to give him all the kids in her orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
He has already started on it, in fact. But one of the kids is missing, and it's that kid from before.
Yeah. They go ahead with it regardless. He's basically planning to lie to the authorities and be like, yeah, I don't know where the kids went, which is a fantastic alibi. And, you know, if he genuinely doesn't know where one of the kids went, you know, just makes it more believable, really.
Right. So, also, we get, like, one last shot of, like, the kid. Oh, yeah, the nun goes through with it. She says she just doesn't know.
Yeah.
And the last shot is, like, before the scene ends, is, like, the kid hiding out in this, I think it's like a power station or something? Transformer? One of those. And then we also get, like, a zoom in on an eye with, like, monsters in the reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And then the man wakes up. The man who was a kid.
We're in the present day. We're seeing Edward Carnby, 2001 edition. You're just having a nightmare. He has this, like, completely insane conversation with the child next to him, where the kid is like, my mom tells me there's nothing to be afraid of in the dark, and Carnby starts giving him, like, this noir monologue about how the dark hides horrible, terrible things, like he's Batman or some shit. And then, I guess this is as good a time as any to talk about my biggest problem with the film, which is the editing is atrocious.
Yes.
Like, the script and the acting aren't great, but I think they could be serviceable. The problem is, like, the cinematography is fucked. And it does this thing where it keeps, like, going back and forth between scenes, but they aren't, like, meaningfully juxtaposed in any way.
Right.
So it just feels like a scene is arbitrarily being split into two short, less meaningful scenes. And I mention this because, like, right after the airplane, we get 5 seconds of present-day Lionel Hudgens on a boat informing an agent of his that Carnby has the artifact and must be intercepted and killed. And then it's right back to Carnby. And that's just how the whole fucking movie goes, it feels like.
Yeah, I felt like the first 20 minutes or so especially feel fast-paced. The pacing is really weird in this.
I'll also say, I think the first 20 minutes or so aren't that bad. And I think this is where my opinion is going to differ from a lot of people. This is not a good movie. I'm not going to say this is a good movie. But it has garnered a reputation as one of the worst movies of all time, and I don't think that's deserved.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's not a good movie, but I also don't think it's necessarily trying to be a good movie.
Yeah.
It's just very... It feels very low budget. It feels very silly. I think the reputation... It has as bad a reputation as it does because of its association with a video game.
Yeah. And its association with a man who just seems like kind of a dick.
Yeah. Yeah, he does seem like kind of a dick. So... what happens? Okay, so... What we get now is, like, a narration from Carnby where he's, like, getting on a cab and he's saying, now, maybe you thought I was being a little weird with that kid. Well, you see, I was an orphan, and believe me, there's some scary shit out there. It's all real.
He uses the same line about protecting you from the things you don't believe in twice.
Yeah.
And that's just lazy. Come on.
Yeah.
Do an editing pass.
He mentions he has amnesia from when he was 10. He describes himself as the person who's here to protect you from the things you can't see. He's trying to find, like, the mysteries of his past. He's a paranormal investigator because of that. So, he's on this taxi, and he's with this very frat bro of the era taxi driver.
He looks like Ed Sheeran to me. Like, he has that kind of, like, face shape and shitty beard.
Right. And he's like, hey, what you doing? I'm a paranormal investigator. For real? He's
I mean, it's a very real response.
Yeah.
If I heard somebody say that, I would be like, oh, I gotta know more about this guy.
Real shit? So
Carnby notices they're being followed, and, you know, you get that standard, hey, try and lose the tail chase scene, but I will concede that this part is really poorly executed, and again, I do think the biggest problem is the editing, because, for one thing, we keep getting shots of the cab driver's face instead of the car's, and they go way too long.
Yeah.
But also, the actual staging isn't great. Mostly, they're just doing a couple sharp turns. There's a fruit cart, but they don't, like, go through it. They just kind of graze it. And that just feels like a wasted opportunity.
Yeah. Eventually, Carnby, like, jumps out. I think they, like, crash into something or something like that.
Yeah, basically the other cab rams them, crashes the car into a wall. Carnby flees, and then we get a fight scene, which I think is choreographed okay, but the shot framing is so fucking weird. Like, there's this one shot that sticks out to me where you're just, like, kind of seeing the sleeve and back of Carnby's jacket, and that's kind of it. And also, in both this and the chase scene, there are slow-mo shots pretty often, but they're not
meaningful.
Like, they're not meaningful, and also, it doesn't get that much slower most of the time.
Right.
So at first I was like, is my brain playing tricks on me? I had to, like, go back and be like, no, it's definitely, like, a little bit slower.
Right.
But then the movie rules for a bit, because, so the guy who was sent after Carnby, he manages to knock him to the ground, he takes the artifact from him, and then as he's, like, standing up from over Carnby, I'm gonna be saying Carnby so much, and it's his name, it just starts sounding silly to me.
It's a weird name because like the original Alone in the Dark games, they take place in the 20s. It's got sort of like this old-timey pulp adventure feel from what I understand.
Yeah.
Like Edward
and then
Carnby
both of the reboots are very contemporary.
Yes. So it just feels really weird to keep naming him Edward Carnby in these.
Yeah. Anyway, so this guy is, like, crouched over Carnby, taking the artifact, and then as he's standing up, Edward Carnby does a flash kick from supine position, knocking it out of his hands and grabbing it as it falls.
Yeah.
And that fucking owns.
There's
then a little while after that, he's, like, shooting the guy pursuing him, and for some reason we just see the inside of the handgun as the bullet is being fired.
It's so
which
good.
It's so good, but especially because the bullets don't actually do anything to this guy. Like, it just slows him down a little. Because he has a monster in him, as we will learn.
Yeah.
It just feels like a weird place to put a shot like that. But then they get, like, this fight in an ice warehouse, which I think was genuinely maybe the high point of the movie.
Right.
And you don't want that to come, like, 15 minutes in, 20 minutes in, but it is what it is.
I do think it kind of blew its load early, was this whole scene.
It really did. And here's the thing. We're going to get into it. This movie has Street Fighter disease. It is the exact same problem where it's like, oh, okay, you got some cool, like, martial arts movie stuff going on. Almost like obviously not as good as a Jackie Chan movie, but, you know, there's, like, a little bit of comedy. There's some good spots. And then, oh, you just want me to watch people, like, shooting stuff for the other 90 minutes of the runtime, huh? Well, alright. Anyway, he eventually flips the pursuer onto a spike, and that kills him instantly.
Yeah. Let's see. So, I think this is around where they, after he, like, deals with this guy, we cut to, this museum that's having an Abkhani exhibit.
Yes. So, the Abkhani were a Native American civilization that, you know, died out or declined about 10,000 years ago. Apparently they were super technologically advanced and spread across both North and South America. Now, you might think that this would be tied to some kind of theme, but it's not. It's just a plot device, and a pretty flimsy one at that.
Right.
But it does introduce the second movie that this wants to be. Because here's the thing. This movie wants to be like 5 different things.
Right.
And it cannot commit to any of them, and I think that, after the editing, is probably the biggest problem. Like, it wants to be this sort of hard-boiled, like, light martial arts kind of flick, but it also wants to be like an Indiana Jones thing, but it also wants to be Alien. It's weird.
Yeah, it's really all over the place. So we've got this assistant curator, Aline Cedric. She's like talking with a security guard and, like, the male guy. The security guard says, hey, you can, like, show this to your boyfriend or something like that. I don't remember. But she gets, like, mad at him and leaves, and the male guy explains to it, well, no, the security guard says, man, I shouldn't have said that. Her boyfriend's been missing for 3 months.
Yeah, and we get like this little exchange between the guard and the delivery guy that is supposed to be funny, and it's not. And this is another instance of them, like, explaining something that we would already understand based on what happens later in the movie. And then we're back with Hutchins and his boat, and now they've hauled... I'm unclear on whether the container or the contents is the Erebus, but they've hauled the Erebus up from a sunken shipwreck.
Right.
And I remember being like, oh, this sequence is kind of visually striking. Oh, it's over already.
Yeah.
Carnby's walking down an alley. There's a bunch of weird, jerky camera movements and fucking stupidest growl wave. And he goes to his apartment?
I think he lives in a warehouse.
It definitely seems like he lives in a warehouse, but also his furniture is really nice, so I don't know, like, what he's doing here.
He broke into a furniture warehouse, I guess.
You don't have to pay for a bed. You can just sleep on one that nobody's bought yet.
Yeah, so Yeah, he's got this thing. He gets like a... Is this when he gets like the voicemail from like...
Yeah,
his guy on the inside.
Carnby, it's John. The nightmares have started again. Beep! Like, it literally the dialogue. All I care. We also get to see what the artifact he has looks like.
Yeah.
He sort of removes it from this packaging, and it's a ring with a big piece of blue glass in the middle. It kind of looks like a tiny telescope with little glyphs carved into the side. This, by the way, is still being intercut with Hudgens on the boat. They're examining the container that has the Erebus in it, or the container that is the Erebus. Again, still not clear to me.
Yeah.
The captain of the boat is like, wow, is this solid gold? I bet its contents are even more valuable. Wink, wink. And then he just has his crew beat the shit out of Hudgens and throw him in the brig.
Yeah.
But it turns out the contents are something horrible. And that when he unseals them, there's a psychic pulse to Carnby and the other orphans.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, does any of this amount to anything? Because, like, it... So, here's my understanding.
Yeah.
We learn this in the opening crawl, but if not for that, we would eventually learn that Hudgens experimented on the orphans to, like, hybridize them with monsters or alien parasites or whatever, and turn them into, like, sleeper super soldiers for him. But he doesn't want the crew to unseal the crate, and when they do, something comes out that attacks them. I'm assuming one of the big monsters, the Xenos. But it doesn't seem like the parasite orphans... Like,
yeah, I'm not sure why they
still seem to obey Hudgens, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, he seems to have, like, some sort of control over all this, but it's not really clear. Like, and I get, like, maybe there could be, like, a bit about him saying, oh, of course I got the worst possible crew. Of course I wanted them to unseal it, but they don't say that. It just sort of happens.
Yeah. It's really hard to get a feel on what exactly Hudgens' plan is or how well it's going at any given time.
Yeah. It just feels like they made him evil for a twist,
but it's not a twist because we already know from the opening crawl.
Yes, exactly. We already know he's evil, but it's so weird. Why did they put this crawl at the beginning? It was unnecessary.
I genuinely don't know, because, like, usually when something like that happens, it's because somebody, the director or an executive, thinks that the audience isn't going to understand the movie. But, like...
Right, like, a common thing...
When this movie is not, like, losing sight of cause and effect, it is pretty straightforward and easy to follow. It is not subtle, so I don't know why you would feel the need to clarify any of that. Especially since you've already got the fucking Carnby monologues here and there that can already be used to do that relatively organically. I do want to say, though, during the fucking, like, orphans entering zombie mode montage, there is a moment where a video clerk just leaves in the middle of his shift, and the people lined up at the counter just kind of, like, look at him going.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool to... I like the idea of, like, the zombie... I like the scene where they're all just, like, leaving what they're doing and just walking away mysteriously. It's kind of freaky.
Yeah, it has a vibe to it in a way that a lot of this movie does not.
Right.
So, you know, after the crew is massacred, Hudgens arms himself, he busts out of the brig. There's this shaky cam shot for some reason as he makes his way to the container, and he opens up a secret panel that contains another Abkhani artifact.
Right.
Are you ready to introduce our fourth fucking, like, plot?
Oh, right.
Railway.
Mm-hmm.
Our fourth running plot line, which is Bureau 713, because this movie also wants to be Men in Black, I guess.
Yeah, Bureau 713 is... Well, first off, they seem to have a very low budget. They've got a mission control, they've got some foam chest pads, and cool guns we'll learn about later.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they put their budget in. They're, like, investigating the disturbance. They're led by this guy named Burke. Burke is... I'll get more into it later, but I'm kind of obsessed with Burke.
I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. I remember when I first saw Burke, I was like, oh great, another movie where, like, two of the main guys look basically the same.
Mm-hmm.
Because Burke and Edward Carnby are both white dude with light beard.
Yeah. The difference is Carnby has a jacket, and Burke has a fake vest. A fake bulletproof vest. So they're like investigating these, like, demon disturbances or whatever. And soon enough, like, they're like going, we'll learn more later, but like they're gonna go to the museum and try to investigate, like, the exhibit. Let's see. Alice gets a phone call. I don't remember what it was about. Was it Carnby or Burke or I don't remember. No.
Sorry, I had some water in my mouth.
No.
No, the phone call she gets, I think, is from Hudgens. Who's
right,
like,
Hudgens.
Hey, did you open my package? And she's like, yeah. I'm trying to decode it. And he's like, fuck you! No, don't decode it. That's not your job.
Mm-hmm.
The only important thing about this scene is that I fixated on a minor set detail, which is that Cedric has either 2 small bottles of whiskey or normal-sized bottles of maple syrup on her desk, right next to her computer monitor.
I didn't notice that, but now I'm very fascinated.
What life is she leading, you know?
I don't know which is more interesting. She's... well, anyways, there's, like, another flashback scene. It's, like, very quick. It's very edited in a weird way. It's, like, it's meant to be, like, confusing, but, like, apparently...
Well, listen, they achieved that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like little kid Carnby, he's back at the orphanage. He says, the others are back. And I guess the orphans got to go back home after they went missing. But yeah, he gives some more, this woman calls Carnby and tells her husband went missing. He's one of the other kids who went to the orphanage.
Yep.
Then so
this is where Carnby, like, gives us exposition on an Abkhani myth about people joining forces with the darkness to gain incredible power.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the part where I think I was really starting to sour on the movie, because I feel like there's 2 ways you can go with a character like Carnby. He can either not know what's going on and find out over the course of the movie, which I think is the correct answer for, you know, monsters that don't cleanly map onto a well-known, like, classic horror monster. Or he can straight up be a vampire hunter, and he's like, yes, I know Xenos, I know fucking parasite super soldiers, let's go, I'm geared up.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it's like, he knows everything useless about them, but also he's going to have to be told how to fight them, and it just doesn't really click for me.
And
I also don't get, like, he ends up calling a friend at Bureau 713 for help finding John, and we learn that he used to work there, and I don't think this gels either.
Right.
Like, Carnby just does not sell X-Fed to me.
Right.
But also, he doesn't really sell much besides noir archetype.
So he gives more exposition, like, he was working for there to, like, investigate the Abkhani because he wanted to learn more about this weird thing that happened to him as a kid. But, like, as soon as he, like, got his hands on, like, an artifact, things would become, like, classified and he wouldn't be able to do anything anymore. I'm not really sure how high up he was, because there's some stuff that implies he's high up, but, like, but also, like, he gets all the information classified and can't get the full story, so I feel like they need to make it a little clearer. But yeah, all of the other orphanage kids were missing. He meets back up with Aline, and shows her, like, the artifact he has. She, like, slaps him in the face because she thought he was dead. He explains he was in the Amazon for 6 weeks, and got his little artifact from some, ex-Chilean military guys on the black market.
I'm sure that's all fine.
Yeah. Actually, here's something I'm thinking about. Like, the Indiana Jones movie aspect kind of fails because they don't really go anywhere. We get boat.
Yeah, they just go to, like, an abandoned mine.
Yeah, they go to boat, they go to mine, and they go to Vancouver, and that's it. So anyways, he asks, so Aline asks, hey, if you're trying to build a puzzle, put the pieces so far apart. It just, I don't know, it just feels like a dumb line. I don't like it.
She's got to play more JRPGs. This is always how it works.
So,
and then it turns the villain was tricking you into assembling the key to, like, the hell dimension, and you have to fight God.
Right, exactly. So, let's see, I feel like I'm missing something here. Okay.
Did we discuss that Carnby is Cedric's boyfriend?
You know, they kinda are. He, like, meets up with them over a meal.
She does the whole, oh, I'm hugging you because I missed you, and now I'm going to hit you because you made me worried, and normally I'd be like, okay, that's a little cliche, but also this is the closest thing to a real character dynamic.
Yes.
In this movie. It goes away immediately after this.
Not a lot of people in this movie act like real people.
I mean, here's the thing. I think that goes hand in hand with the pacing and editing issues. This movie doesn't spend the time necessary
to
make us buy these people, and it also doesn't give us action set pieces that are that exciting. So it just ends up kind of sagging a bit because of that.
Yeah.
The more I review this, I think the more I'm sort of souring on this movie.
Fair enough.
I still think it's not one of the worst of all time, because I've seen some dog shit movies.
There are some dog shit.
But
yeah. It's
not good.
It's not good. I personally found it entertaining in the moment. Like, I'll talk more about this when we get to, like, our ratings, but, like, overall, I think this is good for, like, group watching with some friends one time.
I can see that.
So while they're in the museum, and they are, like, doing computer stuff, and, the power goes out, wait, shit, I'm trying to remember, does Burke show up during the daytime sections, or is it later?
It's later.
Right.
He like, basically what happens is, so they're at the museum discussing the artifacts and shit, but then there's some electrical issues at the museum, and that leaves the security guard by himself in low light conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And we get more shots that are either 3 seconds too long or 1 second too short. I guess this is supposed to be a horror sequence, but it doesn't work because
it's
one,
you don't really feel
it's not
scary or tense.
It's not dark is part of the problem. Like, the lights are flickering, but you can still see stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does use to build tension, I guess, is you see a flashlight passing over various Native American statues.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I get into something that I can't believe I'm saying for fucking Alone in the Dark. But I have a world-building objection here, which is, the whole premise is based on the idea that the Abkhani were this, like, super spread out, like, almost Atlantis kind of civilization. But I can't even tell if these are supposed to be Abkhani artifacts, because they just look like actual Native American First Nations artifacts from a variety of unrelated cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not a thing where they got somebody to come in and, like, design what the Abkhani civilization might look like.
Right.
It's just a bunch of arbitrary signifiers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, he gets to this point where it looks like an exhibit that has, like, medieval Chinese pottery and also Pacific Northwestern totem poles.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem like a well-organized museum.
Yeah.
I think they should spend more time on, like, getting their exhibit straight and less time on hauling magic flashlights up with boats or whatever the fuck.
Right, right.
Anyway, eventually a knockoff xenomorph shows up and spears the security guard through the face.
It does not look very good.
So, well, okay. So here's another problem with this movie, and I have to stress, I feel the need to stress, because I am bagging on this movie, not a good movie, does not make it the worst movie I've ever seen.
Absolutely not.
But I think somewhat famously, part of why the xenomorph was scary is that for a lot of the runtime of Alien, you don't really get to see it. It is actually low lighting conditions, or you only see it in, like, the corner of the frame or whatever. So what isn't scary is seeing this CGI monster as long as fucking possible before we get a cut. And also throughout the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, let's see. Yeah, it kills the security guard. Not long. So, yeah, next, like, Carnby and Alicia run into his dead body. They realize there's a monster here. They, like, hide in a storage room. Carnby, like, shoots at it through a broken window in the door. And then we get, XCOM. We get Bureau 713 showing up to, like, shoot these, to, like, hunt the monster down. They're not doing a great job for a while. Oh, yes, so Burke, this is where, like, Carnby runs into Burke, and Burke fucking hates Carnby, but, like, not in a way that feels, like, intimidating.
Yeah, he's just kind of a whiny baby man.
He feels like he's a fucking bully in a kid's cartoon, but an adult man. He's, like, giving him shit. He's, like, trying to, like, scare him with, like, his authority and stuff. Carnby, like, tries to attack him and gets pulled back.
Which, hey, I'm just gonna give a little advice to our listeners at home. If you have a problem with a federal agent, and there are several other armed federal agents within line of sight, maybe don't try to attack him.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have a big brain plan to steal his ID card. Maybe don't do that because you will get shot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, okay, this next scene feels out of place because they haven't hunted down the monster yet. But he just sort of goes into a morgue somewhere where he meets up, with, what's his name? The inside guy.
Fish, I think?
Bish? Alright. Yeah. He's with Bish in some sort of morgue, and he's, like, taken apart, he's, like, doing an autopsy on the, guy that got killed in the, like, opening stuff. He is able to get in here because he has Burke's ID, so I, like, did he leave? Did he leave to go to a facility?
I guess it's like a field autopsy facility, and it's just like in the museum.
Yeah. And, like, what's the ID gonna do? Like, I get, like, maybe it can get through a key card. Like, he can open, like, a locked door with it. But it feels like this ID has more ability than it should. But anyways, this guy, that Bish is taking apart, he is Agent James Pinkerton. He previously worked for Bureau 713, but went MIA 20 years ago. And then we find out there's something fused to his spinal cord, and he's like going into this body, and they pulls out a big bug, and they put bugs in him.
They did put bugs in him.
And while he's doing this, it's a lot of bug too. So as it turns out, Carnby also is getting a reading for bug.
Yeah, he has bug in spine, but he fried it in power plant.
Yeah.
So they decide extracting it would be too risky because it could fuck up his spine.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he seems okay.
Yeah.
Which, you know, you'd think this would be setting up a plot thread for later. No,
yeah.
It's just kind of like, hey, you got a bug. You want us to do anything about it? No.
Yeah, like, it would make...
I do kind of respect that, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes that's how it is. Sometimes you got, like, a health problem, and it's like, oh, I don't feel like checking that out. It's not that big a deal.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Alicia runs into Hudgens again, who got here. He got to shore a few hours ago. I do wonder just how far offshore this boat was. The passage of time is a little weird, but more importantly, he needs that artifact. There's like a soldier here who's like watching Alicia. She shows up later. And he like lies to Alicia saying that they found nothing. It was a big waste of time. It's normal and he's normal. Let's see. Then after like the scene of Carnby talking about the bug in him, Hudgens is like, okay, this just raises further questions. Hudgens has his own room somewhere. Well, I guess his office, and there's like a demon locked in a broom closet or something? It's got like a little cage thing. He installed a prison cell into his office. And he like gets something from it. And I think he injects a big serum of its blood into himself.
I completely forgot about that entire sequence.
It's so weird.
That sounds right. I feel like I remember that, but I have no fucking idea what any of it had to do with anything.
Right.
The main thing I remember is that Hudgens feeds Fish one of the worms because he was unaccompanied.
Right.
At night.
Bish gives a bit more lore. The demons are weak to osmium, iridium, platinum, gold. They can disable electronics. They live in the dark because sunlight is lethal to them. So they use bullets that have stuff in them that makes them light.
I think the bullets have the metals that fuck with them.
Right.
And then they just have flashlights set to a certain frequency or something.
Carnby goes back to his hideout with a briefcase of weapons. And he gives more exposition while stripping down to his jeans to go to sleep. Let's see. The Bureau guys are doing some more investigating while, Alicia goes to the warehouse. Now, I do have to admit I was a little confused because she wasn't wearing her glasses and her hair was down. I was, for a second, confused. But anyways. So Bish meets up with Burke. They talk a bit more about, how Burke just sort of really, really hates Carnby for reasons? I don't know if he just hates him.
Yeah, and he demands that Bish tell him, tell me everything you know about Carnby. And he's like, I don't know. We work together. He's nice. And it's after this scene where he gets got by Hudgens.
Yeah. It is really funny to me that earlier on when he's, meeting with Carnby, he's like, if they find out I'm doing this, they're going to kill me. But all he gets is just, a little chewing out by Burke. It's very silly. He gets to go home. He's with his nameless, faceless wife, who's making dinner, but then she disappears, and he finds her, and she's dead. And then Hudgens shows up and attacks him, and stuffs a worm down his throat. I guess he's enthralled. I don't know.
Yeah, the worm gets his spine and makes him obey Hudgens?
Does he even...
For reasons I'm increasingly unclear on?
Yeah, does he even show up for the rest of the movie?
I think he shows up in, one or two scenes? Oh, yeah, no, you know what he does? Later on, he, suicide bombs a generator, is I think what goes on with him.
Okay.
Okay, hang on. We're about to get to a really good part of the movie again.
Okay.
So...
Oh, boy. Is this where it is? Yes.
Carnby and Cedric get back together. I think they're in Cedric's office. They're discussing the artifact. The lights start flickering again. And then a bunch of the infected orphans show up and start attacking. But, Bureau 713 is pretty easily able to take them out. But then one of the big boy monsters shows up. There's this brief chase where Carnby and Cedric, they aren't really dodging or going over anything. They're just kind of jerking down normal, perfectly spacious hallways and pretending like it's tense. They eventually shoot the monster with the special ammo. It dies. And then we get this stupidest fucking montage. It is nothing but muzzle flashes, a looping submachine gun sound effect, and the worst heavy metal in the world.
I love this fucking bit.
It's like watching a strobe light while you blast Metallica. And then it's just over.
Mm-hmm. It's such a non-action scene, but like the awful nu metal almost music just really just puts it together in such a beautiful way. This, you could just like make a scene of just this firing guns while the metal plays on loop, and I would just watch it for 10 minutes straight.
Yeah. Be a better movie.
It would be. I do also think it's really funny that they do just seem to be standing in place firing guns. So the Bureau guys are sweeping the area. They get attacked by the orphanage people who are now full zombie. And we get some more action. We get a big action scene with them fighting. The Bureau guys are having a way harder time with 19 zombies than they were with like a dozen xenomorphs.
Yeah.
At one point, like, Burke does like some martial arts stuff on one of them.
We do get some real goofy looking blood and gore, which is, judging by the two... Oh, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Judging by the two Uwe Boll movies I've seen, the other one being Blood Rain,
mm-hmm.
goofy looking blood and gore is another one of the high points, if and when it shows up.
Right. So, yeah, Burke makes Carnby give him his ID back, and for the rest of the movie, they just sort of seem chill with each other. They're just on the same side now. I feel like they could have had like a bit where Carnby says, "You need me to get through there. I have the key," or whatever. It's not really clear what the game plan is, just that they're going to a mine. They're going to like, this Abkhani, underground facility. There's just like two troops just giving, exposition about this whole thing.
Yeah, my understanding is that Hudgens and Fish went missing during the chaos at the museum, and that they've traced like a paranormal signature coming from the mine.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if they leaned into the Indiana Jones-ness, I'm sure there would be some kind of clues or foreshadowing, but instead it's just like, oh, we found a signal. Let's go there. Hey, we get to see them enter the mine. It's not creepy. It is wet.
Mm-hmm.
They get to this area with like Abkhani glyphs, and then a trapdoor opens and one of the generic Bureau soldiers falls in.
Mm-hmm. It's a video game spike pit. I love it.
Yeah.
Like,
his name is Marco. We learn this in the scene where he dies, because he has not shown up until then, to my knowledge. So everybody please pour one out for Marco.
Mm-hmm.
Gone but not forgotten.
I'm very entertained by these, like, perfectly round Mega Man video game spikes. So, meanwhile, like, the Bureau guys are, like, setting up defenses. It's just really, really funny to me how shitty their costumes look. Like, I understand probably didn't have, like, a huge budget, but, like, it's just, like, foam vests and riot shields they never put down. Riot helmets. And also cool guns. It's like in an XCOM campaign where, like, the player is just putting, like, their research into new weapons and not, like, anything any armor or anything. Yeah. They, like, set up a generator, but then the generator gets taken out by, Fish, whatever. We also get a shot of, like, Hudgens watching the monsters go wild in a forest.
Hey, so, like, he has control over them, I guess?
I guess.
It's, again, never really made clear how.
Mm-hmm. So, what happens next? So, yeah,
there's an Indiana Jones crushing trap.
Yeah.
Which I think gets one of the nameless soldiers, but everybody else gets out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then they enter the Hall of Death, the only way out of which is death.
Right.
They fight a bunch of the worm parasites, but it's a really stupid and goofy scene, because... So it's a room with, like, a bunch of sand in it, and the parasites are burrowing through the sand. So they're just, like, kind of aiming at the ground and shooting at moving bulges.
Yeah.
Like a cat under a comforter or something. Honestly, this is probably the closest this gets to the original Alone in the Dark games.
There's zero tension to this scene, too. Yes, the lady from earlier is the one getting hurt and she dies. But, like, I don't know, it honestly just looks like they're having a very bad time aiming. Also, around this time is, like, the other plot line where the generator goes out and the troops topside have to hold the line while monsters attack them. It's not much to say. It weirdly makes me think of, well, never mind.
No, I'm curious.
Okay, so they feel very incompetent and ineffectual. It feels, I don't know, I feel like they should be more intimidating if you want to make them compelling. They just seem like a bunch of losers with the worst budget possible. And it weirdly reminds me of these old 40K memes about, like, how the Imperial Guard is just, like, armed with, like, flashlights and t-shirts. But anyways, so, we get some stuff where, like, these last two stragglers are, like, trying to survive. They both die. But meanwhile, in the, plot side of these scenes, the underground crew find, a brick wall, mysteriously, amongst all of these, like, ancient tunnels. So, they blow it up. And it turns out this leads to what looks like some sort of hospital room full of child-sized beds. And then they look at the beds, and one of the names says Carnby. Uh-oh.
Yeah, and this is played like a twist, even though we already knew. And even outside of the opening crawl, we already knew that he was experimenting on these kids. We already knew that Carnby was one of these kids. We already knew that Carnby has a worm in him. I don't know why they're playing this like a revelation.
Right. And then Hudgens shows up with a gun. He shoots the last remaining, nameless soldier. And he's, like, forcing them to, like, he's like, give me the key. And
yeah, so it turns out that the artifact they have is a key to some kind of door. They were actually thinking about opening it itself in case it provides the answers to questions that Carnby has had his whole life.
Yeah.
I don't know what those are. I feel like it's pretty clear what's going on with Carnby.
Yeah.
It's not like he's an alien or a monster. He's just a kid. Well, he's an adult now, but you get it.
His life is still a nightmare.
Yeah, so they were just gonna leave, then Hudgens is like, no, give me the key, I'm gonna open it. There's this bit where, like, he's fiddling with the door and Burke kills him with a throwing knife while his back is turned, but it's too late, the door is opening. Behind it is a nest from the bottom of a cavern to the top of it, teeming with monsters, and it's at this point that I ask myself, did House of Ashes, the most recent installment of the Dark Pictures anthology, rip off the plot of Alone in the Dark 2005 and just do it more competently?
I mean...
It is a story about tapeworms that turn you into a monster that were involved in the downfall of an ancient civilization. If you get parasitized by them, you are vulnerable to certain frequencies of light, and it has a nest that looks like exactly like this.
Oh my god. On one hand, I could say, I feel like this sort of story is, like, emblematic of military sci-fi.
Sure, like, both of them are probably drawing a lot of inspiration from, again, Alien.
Right.
In particular.
But on the other hand,
and,
I think it's
stories.
really funny to say House of Ashes ripped off Alone in the Dark 2005 film. But, yeah, so, it's full of monsters. They need to shut the door. So, I guess the game plan from here is, Carnby and Alicia go and escape. Burke stays behind so he can set off a bomb, blow up the cavern, or at least collapse the tunnel.
Yeah.
And they do this, Carnby and Alicia escape, and it turns out that, their exit leads right to the orphanage, where Carnby grew up. We also get a huge tunnel full of fire, and we do get a shot of Burke seemingly still alive.
I don't know what that was about.
Maybe he's gonna show up in the sequel. By the way, there's a sequel to this.
There is a sequel to this. I don't know why. So the nun, by the way, is dead, presumably mauled by a monster. I don't care. I want to talk about a narrative theory I have. I developed this theory after playing Fallout 4 and being like, I don't care about this baby. Why would I care about this baby? I spend no time with this baby. And basically, it is, you cannot care about a character that you do not know. You need to spend time with them. You need to be made to understand what their deal is, and only then can you give a shit when something bad happens to them, or you find out about their backstory, or whatever. This nun was in 3 scenes, and in one of them she's just helping a guy do a really awful crime. So I don't know why I'm supposed to care.
Right. It's really weird, because he even does, like, a sort of, like, formal closing the eyes to show respect.
Yeah.
So, now, they walk around town. The city has been evacuated, ? Or maybe, just maybe, there's no more people left. And then...
But there's no corpses.
There's no corpses either.
Like, it's just empty. It looks like the fucking rapture happened.
Yeah.
And they're just, like, wandering around like, well, what the hell happened here?
And our final shot is, we hear more monster growling, and a shaky cam zooms in really fast, as if a monster was attacking them. And then we get credits.
So this is basically the same ending as Resident Evil, but shittier.
Yeah, this is a shittier version of Resident Evil. So, let's see. We get credits set to really bad metal. Well, entertainingly bad metal, at least. And I see York Tittle's name and I'm like, oh, fuck. And that's the end of the movie. So, how would you rank this as an adaptation, and how would you rank this overall film quality?
So as an adaptation, like 0 out of 5.
Right.
Look, I have not played the 2001 entry of the series. I can't speak to what the plot of that was like. My understanding is that the Abkhani are like very tangentially involved.
Mm-hmm.
But may not have anything to do with like what their role in this story is.
Right.
Excuse me. But more to the point, like, it doesn't even remotely achieve the feel of an Alone in the Dark game. Like, these are some of the OG survival horror games.
Right.
And my understanding is that for all the changes the reboots have made, they are still attempting to be horror games. This isn't really a horror movie. I don't know what this movie wants. I mean, I know what this movie wants to be. Alien, but also a detective noir, but also a martial arts movie, but also Indiana Jones. But none of that is what Alone in the Dark is.
Right.
There is no reason this needs to be an Alone in the Dark adaptation in any respect.
Mm-hmm.
And you contrast that with something like the Super Mario Brothers movie. Obviously, a lot of creative liberties taken there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, they were at least taking those liberties with thematic elements that were present in the source material.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like, there is a man named Mario, there is a man named Luigi. They have a familial bond that the movie spends time exploring and developing.
Right.
You know, they got all these little nods to the original games. Mm-hmm. So I feel like Alone in the Dark just functionally is not an adaptation.
Right.
There is nothing here that could not be from literally anything else, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
So, yeah, as an adaptation, 0 out of 5. As a movie on its own, I'm still sort of going back and forth between 1 or 2 mysterious glyphs out of 5.
Right. So, I'm gonna have to agree with you on the adaptation. You made a very compelling explanation on your thoughts. Like,
mm-hmm.
I do want to give this whatever, a little less than whatever I gave Resident Evil. Let me make sure I know it. I think I gave Resident Evil 4 out of 5 as a film, because it's fun, it's entertaining, and it's not necessarily good, but it's entertaining. And I have similar thoughts about Alone in the Dark. Like, I don't think it's as compelling or fun or entertaining as Resident Evil. So I want to give it 3 out of 5. I would say if you've got friends and you like to watch bad movies together, this is a good pick if you're looking for something. In any other context, I would say you don't need to watch this film. It is not the worst movie ever made, but it could do a whole lot better. Yeah. Those are just my sort of general thoughts.
Yep.
Let me...
do we have any questions?
Yeah, let me real quick check. I know we've got some on Discord. Let me make sure. Let me see if there's any on Twitter. It looks... Nope, nothing on Twitter.
That Twitter, by the way, is at VGTMTP.
Yeah.
In case you want to send us questions next time.
Yeah. Send in your questions. It's great. So, okay, let me just make sure. Where's the server? I have entirely too many servers that I'm in, and I lose track very easily. Okay. So, here's our first... We've got a couple questions. First set of questions come from Kitty Cat Herder. Violet, a friend of the show. First question is, could you fight off a demon invasion with an axe?
I mean, how cool is the axe?
Let's go with... That's a good question. Let's say our axe is just Alicia.
Oh, X! Sorry, I thought you were like a battle axe, or like a fireman's... Okay. No, with an... Ooh... Depends on the X.
Yep. I could do it if it was with Alicia, I guess. I don't have... I've never had a partner. I can't answer this compellingly. What about stopping pirate zombie bootleggers?
Oh, okay, no, I remember that one. That one's Alone in the Dark 2.
Oh.
Here's the thing. The pirate zombie bootleggers from that one, I think were also involved with the Confederacy at one point. So I feel like I would have to, or I'd just kind of like... I'd lose any anti-racist cred I have, and I can't let that happen.
Right.
I spend so much time just wanting to, like, fight shitheads, and I can't, for a myriad of reasons. But if they're zombies, you know, who's gonna complain?
Right. Or the cowboy zombies from Alone in the Dark 3.
The cowboy zombies would ruin me. I cannot fight a cowboy.
Right.
Wait, maybe the cowboy zombies were the racist ones? They'd still kill me. I'm more scared of cowboys than pirates.
Interesting.
I can't remember my Alone in the Dark lore. It's been a while. There were definitely...
I kinda half-watched, like, a friend play it one time. I don't know much about Alone in the Dark.
At least one of those games, the antagonist or antagonists were involved with the Confederacy in life or in unlife.
Right. The only thing I vividly remember is are just how incredibly foppish Carnby looks in the first game. And there's like a section where you play as like a little kid, and their walking animation is like a playful skip. Let's see.
You can dress as Santa in one of them. I think that's the pirate one. I want to say it's Alone in the Dark 2 where you dress as Santa, but I could be completely wrong.
I also know that Alone in the Dark 2008 had an inventory system where you opened up your jacket and fished through the pockets. And I think that's very fun. It's very fun and experimental. So, let's see. Dark Wizard James Mason asks, since Lowtax is in hell now, do you think he's stuck in the original Alone in the Dark house? And I gotta say, no, he's stuck in the Doom house.
The Doom house?
Yeah, a Doom house.
I feel like knowing him, I feel like being trapped in one of the few things he made that people enjoyed and respected would not be much of a punishment.
Right. I did read a Twitter post from that night where someone said that, like, all of the people who died in that one thing, in, like, was it? I don't know, like an airplane thread or something. They're all there ready to greet him. So, yeah, I imagine Lowtax's hell has something to do with, like, other goons that have died. Either directly or indirectly because of the forums. Casey Cosmos asks, what's your impromptu weapon of choice when you have to fight for your life in a museum?
I mean, I feel like if you're in a museum, strong chance that you can just find an actual weapon. But if not, I'll probably enjoy beating the hell out of somebody with one of them replica dinosaur bones.
Oh, that would be dope. Yeah, so if I can't find an antique sword, ooh. I'm thinking, I can't think of, shit, yeah, I can't think of anything really fun. Maybe like, I know, I'll fight someone with like a bust and use it as a melee weapon.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Let's see. Sidmon asks, how's it compare to the god-awful remake game?
I don't actually know shit about the remake, besides that you have the jacket thing and you can make Molotovs.
Right. I wish I could tell you.
I'll tell you what. Pretty sure that remake game had more darkness in it.
Yeah, I think that's...
And more being alone. It's called Alone in the Dark. Practically nobody's ever alone, and it's not that dark.
Yeah.
Like, the easiest fucking thing in the world, you know?
Yeah, it's there's like one scene with a fucking security guard and that's it. Let's see. Our next question, from Hornmeister, who asks, would you endorse an Alone in the Dark at the Museum crossover movie? I imagine it to play out somewhat like Alien vs. Predator. I only know Night at the Museum through memes, but sure, yeah. Get some get some weird monster demons to fight, miniature people fight a bunch of miniature men, I don't know.
Okay, hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Hear me out.
Yes.
So there's the exhibits, which are mostly dioramas and replicas, but also there's real ghosts and zombies.
Uh-huh.
And you're having the ghosts and zombies fight the replicas of themselves.
Oh, fuck, that rules.
I don't know how the mummy fits into it, because I feel like that could be the wild card.
They're the tweener. Yeah. Okay. I think that's all our questions. We've done all that stuff. So, real quick, gonna talk about next month's movie. Now, I am a little worried that my potential guests, I might have to talk with my potential guests a bit, because, I'm not sure if one of them's like in a situation where they recently moved and I don't know if they finished setting up everything for them to record. But whoever is on next episode, we're doing a movie in December, and let me let you in on something. Did you know that almost Christmas means it wasn't Christmas?
I did know this.
Wow. So we're talking about the Phoenix Wright movie. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited about the Phoenix Wright movie because it makes a costuming decision that I wish more things did, which is make it look exactly like the source material, no matter how stupid it looks in real life.
I respect that. I love committing to the bit like that.
Yeah. So, until next time, I'm Dan.
I'm Maxie.
And, let's do some plugs. I'm sorry, I should have phrased that a little differently.
Yes, we should.
Yeah, plugs. I'm Dan. You can find me at a lot of places, and you can find all those places at linktr.ee/big_challenges. From there, you can find my Twitter. You can find my other podcasts, which include Pod of Greed, a Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast. We started on season 3. If you subscribe to our Patreon, you will be able to listen to our first ever, well, not our first ever, you'll be able to listen to our very recently recorded bonus episode on Despicable Me 3 for our side series, Grugio. You can listen to the Sonic Shuffle, a Sonic lore podcast. Our next recording, by the time this goes up, well, our next recording is going to be a special episode 69 fanfic episode. So we asked our listeners to write fanfics and send them to us, and we got some results, and we're going to read them on air. We'll probably also talk about, I don't know, shipping or something. I don't know. You can listen to the completed and fully listenable Chill Bleed. It's an Ill Bleed podcast. And the inactive, but hopefully going to update soon, Stranger's Fiction, an actual play podcast focused on one-shots. And last but not least, you can visit at Xbox_holiday, where Usher celebrates holidays with Xbox. Happy Hanukkah, Xbox.
Happy Hanukkah, Xbox.
Maxie, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Tumblr at Max Knightley. That's M-A-X. Let me try that one again. You can find me on Twitter and Tumblr at Max Knightley. That's M-A-X-K-N-I-G-H-T-L-E-Y. And I'm also on the podcast Eidolon Playtest. That is an actual play podcast where me and a bunch of friends are playtesting a tabletop RPG that draws inspiration from Persona and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It is a bunch of superpowered criminals and students getting into trouble and trying very hard to dig themselves out.
Yeah. And we're on Noisepace. That's noisepace.xyz. Because we're run by a Canadian, and he insists we say it their way. We've got lots of different podcasts. Some recent ones that have started up include Digimon Ghost Games, about the new Digimon anime, Digimon Ghost Game. Some good friends of mine are on that one. You can listen. Another new one is Prime Cuts, which is a Transformers podcast, where they just sort of read through they go through it in a non-linear order, just picking out some of the best ones. You can listen to all sorts of other podcasts, like Nightmare and Era, Creepypasta podcast. Oh, you can listen to Kamurocho Radio, which I recently recorded an episode on. Hasn't gone up yet as of the recording, but maybe by the time this is published. There's Kyle XY, ? Which is about Kyle XY. They finished talking about the show, so now they're reading a season 4 fanfic. Let's see, Fear Baiting, it's about horror movies. Stick, it's about Homestar Runner. Slappers Only, it's about video game music. And so on. And what you can find us at VGTMTP on Twitter. And from there you can find our Discord. And until next time, I'm Dan.
I'm Maxie.
And this ain't no game.